Good morning. We have had a viewer request if I could show dumping the tanks, and we're going on a road trip this weekend, so I thought now's a good time to dump the tanks. My general rule of thumb is I will dump the tanks every 2 weeks regardless, and the reason for that is I use the freshwater tank. So here's the multiplex panel at the back of the Ascent, and you can see along the top here, those are the tank levels. So we have on the left, we have fresh, we're at 75, we have quite a bit of fresh, 75% still, gray 50, black is at 75, and the far right one is our propane, 72%. So my general rule of thumb is I never connect the RV to sewage. So if I'm camping, I never connect I always just use the holding tanks. And the second rule of thumb is I never connect the water up to any external source of water. So I'm always completely self-contained. And the reason why I do that is the freshwater tank is my gauge. It's a 20 gallon or 20 something gallon tank. But the point is the gray water and the black water tanks combined are less than the capacity of the freshwater tank. So if I always use this as a rule of thumb, when my freshwater tank gets down to 0, I know I'm not going to overflow ever my gray and black water tanks. They'll never overflow. And there's a possibility if you're connecting up to external sources of water and you're using your holding tanks that you can overflow your black and gray water tanks. But if you do this method where you just always are self-contained, use your freshwater tank as a gauge, when it gets down to 0 you dump, that's a great rule of thumb. Also, regardless, because I'm always just using my freshwater tank, I always dump every 2 weeks. I don't want water sitting in my tanks more than 2 weeks in the heat of the summer. It can grow things and things like that. So I just always dump every 2 weeks anyway. So today, if you look, you can see I'm not really filled up. I've got quite a bit of fresh. I'm not really filled up on black. So what I do is before I leave to go to the station where I dump my tanks, I empty out my freshwater tank. So I will probably leave the black water at 75. I might fill it up a little bit more, but I'm definitely going to fill the gray all the way up to the top. And the reason for that is you want a lot of gray water when you rinse out the tubes and everything at the end. So that's my next step, is just empty out my freshwater tank and fill up my gray water tank, and then we'll hit the road and we'll go to the dump station where I'll dump. Okay, we have now emptied out the freshwater tank. So you can see here that the freshwater tank is at 0, and we filled up the gray and the black water tank. And that's going to be good because I have about a 20-minute drive to get to the dump station. So as I drive, it'll slosh around the tanks. The gray and black tanks will slosh around, and it'll help just kind of clean them out a little bit. And you'll see as well, what I try to do is I put a little bit of, and I'll show this later, I'll put a little bit of Cascade detergent into my black holding tank, and that, well, that's my daughter, and that will allow the tank to keep clean and stay clean. So as it sloshes around in there, it'll keep it clean. So that is now what we're going to go off and do, is we're going to go dump the tank. Okay, well, one of the most important things that we need to do before we start on our journey is to stop by your favorite cafe like we have at the Duc de Lorraine to have your breakfast. You know, it's going to be, you know, not a difficult job, but a little bit of a, you know, dumping your black tank. So enjoy yourself. And here we are at the Duc de Lorraine, our favorite cafe. Sign right there, we are using a public water treatment plant. That's where we dump. So we're coming up on it up here. It's free, it's clean, it's fast, it's convenient. So that's what we use.
In 200 meters, your destination is ahead on your left.
So you'll see it up here. And hopefully there's no other RVs. Usually there's not.
You have reached your destination on your left.
just us. So we just pull up here, you can see. Now our dump tank's on the driver's side and it's just past the driver's door. So I just pull up here and then basically right about there, that is where it's at. So next stop, outside. Oh, before we do that, I always get our gloves right here. So these are my plastic gloves. I keep them in the glove box. It's always just a little nicer. You don't get your hands wet or anything like that. So I'll see you outside. So here's you're gonna put your sewer pipe into there. This is on our RV, this is where it's at. So I just open the dump station, use this little thing to hold it. Now back here, see that? It's a nice little storage area for the drain pipe. So it's right here. So just pull that out. This comes with the unit. You don't need a very long one because these are not, you're not very far away from here. All right. Then we just take this, latch it on. That. Make sure it's on good and tight. I think that's good. Then we're going to take this and put this down here into the little hole. Now, actually, I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, now that it's in, you have two handles. So you have, this is the black and the gray. You always want to dump the black first because then we rinse with the gray. So all you do is you just pull it. There it goes. Emptying all out there. Doesn't take long. It's still going. I let it go all, drain it good. Still going. I lift the hose up just to get any liquids out from there. I think that's good. All right, so that's done. We close the block, you push it in. Now we're going to use the gray to flush. Now the gray is just your sink water, and generally there's soap and stuff in there, which is good. So to rinse out the hose good, we just pull this tank. There we go. And now we're rinsing out the hose and the gray water is dumping. This might take just a little bit longer because it's a bigger tank. Actually, it doesn't smell at all this time, which is great. There's no smell. It's almost done. I hear it. Then I just, again, lift the hose just to get any little water that's in there out. Okay. Then we shut it. And now what I do is I just rinse the hose out. So I'm going to disconnect it here. Pause, because I got to use both hands. Okay, now we just disconnect the hose. It should be pretty clean. It is clean. You can see inside, it's very clean. And we're just going to use this hose here and rinse it out. I always rinse this area down with the hose as well. And then we take our tube and just put it back in the container and we're done. We have dumped the tanks. You can see it's a little bright here. But you can see the fresh is at empty, the gray is at empty, and the black is at empty. So that's great. And so now the next step is, the next video is, we're going to fill the tanks back up, and I'm going to show you some of the secrets that I use in order to keep the tanks clean and things like that.